baby, can I give it kindness now? Got too much drip, yeah, I know she can't hold it. Looking at your bitch, even though she got COVID.
What are these words? What are these preposterous words?
Reflect, champ. Reflect, champs. Reflect. Reflect.
So I'ma have to put you on timeout, sit Indian style, let you stare at that nice wall in your mother's basement and reflect, champ.
It's time to take a time out and reflect, champs. While you're sitting Indian style and you're looking at your grandmother's wall in that basement, make sure you take time to reflect, champs. And while you're doing all your reflecting, make sure you go over to wearetough.com and get your merch today. That is wearetough.com and get your merch today. What you talking about?
Is that referencing something specific, a specific count of the indictment? They can't tell you that. and it's taken out of context. You know, last week when we had a bond hearing, Bob Rubin represented one of the other individuals, said something that I thought, as a 56-year-old person who grew up in Brooklyn with rap music and all of that, thought was particularly insightful. He said, Judge, you know, it seems kind of bizarre, you know, some 50-something-year-old white guy is trying to tell you what, you know, someone who's a rapper means in a particular song. And I don't mean to suggest that that some people have greater sensibilities about rap music than others, right? But what I am suggesting is that it is somewhat disingenuous to simply quote portions of song lyrics when you don't really know what they are, and to take them out of context, and to not know who wrote the song or who's actually singing the song. Because I can tell you, I've poured through this indictment, and I know for a fact that there are some of these lyrics that are quoted or attributed to Jeffrey Williams that were not written by him, and that were not sung by him. But when do we find that out? In the middle of trial? After they've stood up here and try to convince you that you ought to use these lyrics as incendiary as they sound to deny him bond.
He's fighting back.
And then 8, 9, 10 months later, that wasn't Jeffrey Williams. And that's why it's so dangerous to have the state. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. I was going to, but I'm not going to because I'm mindful of the time. But I think the court gets my point that to quote song lyrics and Instagram posts or group chats or group texts that we, by the way, contest in several of them is not Jeffrey Williams, and that he did not say that and did not say those things. And there's no greater force to them standing up here and saying that he said those things than us saying he didn't. It's on equal footing, and it shouldn't be considered because it's just something that has to be proven later on. In Act, I thought this was funny. Act 70.
Nigga, you look like Tommy from Martin. That's a fact.
The state reference.
That's a fact. Yeah. Heard of my mother, nigga.
Act 74. Now that one I thought was particularly interesting and is, I think, symptomatic of what is flawed about the state's argument as to why you should consider everything they've read to you or presented to you in the indictment. Act 74 references Jeffrey Williams releasing a video. They said it was released on 4/12/18. I'm going to suggest that at some point in the future they'll go back and they'll correct that, and they'll recognize that this was a song, Anybody, that was written by Jeffrey Williams, Nicki Minaj, and a third writer, and that some of the lyrics that are in here are actually lyrics that are sung by Nicki Minaj, but they don't know that. They don't know that, but they stand up here and say this with the force of authority, thinking that that's going to be, and they make that essential part of their argument. What did they say? They said, the song lyrics say, I never killed anybody, but I got something to do with that body. And that, Judge, is exactly where we're telling you that Jeffrey Williams, no, he may not have ever killed anybody that we know of, but he's the man in control. He's King Slime. He's the one who's running everything, and he's confessing it by saying that in this song. I told them to shoot 100 rounds. They left out the other line that comes after that. Like they're trying to movie a body, like they shoot a movie. I mean, it's laughable, but it's an issue for later on down the road. Judge, in regards to the court's consideration, four things, maybe five.
Nigga said Nikki next. Y'all
if you
this nigga try to throw that.
You have everything in front of you, Judge, that the court needs to make a determination about whether Mr. Williams is suitable for bond. I would contend respectfully that he is. There are no greater set of assurances that any defendant can put in front of you that can give you some assurance that he will reappear for trial than we have done. We have given the court every possible option I would suggest to you, and we have offered up the ability to have the court have its say in everything in terms of which of his residences, what house he lives in.
Niggas try to violate Nikki just
the court can have the court and the DA can have access to video feed from the house, so they can see what's going on in the house while he's there. That these law enforcement officers who will be properly vetted, who have been properly vetted, who will be there and will be responsive not to Mr. Williams, not because it's being paid for by Mr. Williams, but because they're responsive to the court, and will have reports that are submitted to the court or to the DA's office. We've put that in front of you, Judge. We're asking you to take that assurance and give it significant consideration, not because he's able to pay for it, but because it's going to accomplish what you need for it to accomplish to assure you that he'll show back up. We have suggested and we have put before you the option of he needs to work, but having a studio built at his residence where and inspected by law enforcement to ensure that there's nothing untoward going on there, so he can do what he does. That's his job. We have suggested to the court that, not suggested, we're happy to surrender his passport, even though it's not an issue. He's not leaving the house, but we'll surrender it anyway. We have suggested that his calls can be monitored